Hello everybody and welcome to Dungeons & Drams. Today's video is going to be really cool. This is some of the more advanced stuff that you can do with ChatGPT, as well as utilizing some additional resources and just all kinds of things to help you balance an encounter. And once you've done this once, you can now utilize it as long as things don't change, like if your characters level up or something, you'll have to redo this, but that's okay. We'll talk about all that. But this will be useful for you for an entire level, if not a little bit longer. So let's go over to ChatGPT and I'll walk you through this. We're going to start off with our normal prompt. I am a dungeon master playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I'm going to upload some character sheet PDFs and I'd like you to analyze them, taking special note of their level, abilities, and any magic items that they have. I will then prompt you for the encounter. I may provide the location, situation, the difficulty of the encounter, and any other variables that may be important. I would like to work to create balanced encounters based off these prompts that will be challenging. So I took the definition of easy, medium, hard, and deadly off of D&D Beyond specifically. So there are 4 categories of encounter difficulty. Easy. An easy encounter doesn't tax the character's resources or put them in serious peril. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but generally you know what these mean. Easy, medium, hard, and deadly. Now I'm going to hit enter and make sure it understands. The next thing that you're going to want to do is export PDFs of character sheets. Now D&D Beyond has a great feature for this, but so does Roll20 and I'm sure some other online tools. But once you have a character sheet in PDF format, ChatGPT will be able to take in that PDF, read it, parse it, and figure it out. So on D&D Beyond to do this, all you need to do is go up to the name. So I have Talon Creek here, who's one of my players. I actually picked her specifically because she has 8 levels in Druid and 8 levels in Ranger and 2 in Druid. So just a little bit more challenging. So if you click on the name, you go down to export to PDF. And now it's going to ask you, it's going to give you a link that would be the PDF, so easy, but you can't give that to ChatGPT because it can't really browse to it and figure that out. So you want to hit click to download. Once you've done that, it's going to give you the file. Now go save that off to a location that makes sense to you. And then let's go back to ChatGPT and we're going to take all 4 of, in my case, it's all 4 of the PDFs. I have one for Anomio Banderas, Talon Creek, Alessio Morte, and Nobilis. Now, all 4 of these are players in my regular campaign. You're going to drag all 4 of the PDFs into ChatGPT. It's going to load them, and now you're going to just hit enter. And it's going to read through these and kind of figure them out. It can take a little while depending on the usage of ChatGPT across the internet, but let's go ahead and make sure it got everything right. This is important. Actually, when I was doing my trial run of this, it got the class wrong on a couple of these members. So Nobilis here is in fact a level 10 Warlock. Those do look like his abilities. I could double check, but that looks right. These are his special abilities: Eldritch Blast, Counterspell, Vampiric Touch. Yep, he's got, it got his magic items correct. It did miss one of them, but it ends up being one that just affects his stats, so that's okay. Meaning I think it's taken into it's figured it out. Anomio Banderas is a level 10 fighter, so that's good. Talon Creek is Ranger 8, Druid 2, Stout Halfling, good. And Alessio Morte is a rogue, level 10, Eladrin variant. So I'm going to write up a quick little prompt of kind of where the players are and what I want to have happen. So I could simply say, make me an undead monster encounter, but you know, you got to have a little bit of flair here. So my players are walking into a deserted town called Mastic. It's currently 4 p.m. and it's overcast. The atmosphere is spooky and confining. As the players move along the main street and past deserted houses, they encounter undead creatures. This is where I start telling it, or where I ask it to make stuff. Create me a combat encounter that would be considered medium. Be specific about what monsters to use, how many of them, what weapons or items they would have at their disposal, any special abilities that they may have that I should know about, and any tactics you suggest I utilize. Now I thought about putting this bit in the initial prompt just to kind of set up the format that I want for everything, but I'm choosing to put this secondary because I didn't want to confuse that initial prompt. So once I have this in here, I can now create multiple encounters and it will follow the same format. So let's go ahead. It's provided a pretty good medium encounter here, and not only that, it does, and I'll go into this at the bottom here, but it does actually remind you as the DM to let your players, or maybe remind them of any AoE attacks that they have, because if you're thinking about this, it's a medium encounter, you're not supposed to just die. So maybe you give them a hint, be like, oh, hey, don't you have that, like, you know, Rain of Arrows spell or something like that. So in this case, we now have our encounter setup. It's on the main street of Mastic, with deserted houses on both sides providing cover and potential ambush points. It's 4 p.m, overcast, blah, blah, blah. Spooky with an oppressive sense of confinement and anticipation. I like that. So these are really good little notes, because if I'm not thinking about this in the moment and I'm just like, oh yeah, didn't I have an encounter in Mastic? Like, this reminds me of around what time I wanted to do it and what the environment's like. With the monsters, we have 3 whites. Now these have the special ability for life draining, which is a melee attack that reduces the target's maximum HP equal to the damage taken, and they have sunlight sensitivity. So it's kind of important, and it did consider the fact that it's overcast. So you're not gonna have to really worry about sunlight sensitivity from the daytime, but it marks it here in case one of your players, uses daylight or something like that. So it's actually really good. And I find that when I'm running encounters, especially if I've planned like a couple of them for a session, it's good to have those little reminders of like what their weaknesses are as well as what their abilities are, because it makes less that I have to just memorize outright, especially for a monster that you might only use once in a campaign. Now whites, I like using those. So all right, so we have 3 whites. Then we have 4 skeleton archers equipped with short bows. Now they're vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, which is important to note, immunity to poison and exhaustion. Okay, that's probably not going to come up too much, but still. Their tactics: position on higher ground or inside of the houses, shooting at the party from a distance, focus fire on spellcasters or healers. Fantastic advice. Something you'd probably think of to do yourself, but still really good advice. Zombies, 5 zombies, special abilities, undead fortitude, of course. I think most of us know what that is, but if they go down to 0, you can roll and they might come back with 1 hit point. All right, so tactics: act as a front line to absorb damage and engage the party's melee fighters. Excellent. Okay, so those are the monsters, and then it starts to tell us a little bit about the environment. It has, and this is important because it's not just, you don't want to just have a medium difficulty because of the monsters. You want to utilize your terrain, you want to utilize your environment, and anything else that can be happening here. So I love that it included it. Environmental factors: cover. The houses and debris on the streets provide cover for both the party and undead, allowing for tactical movement and ambushes. So when you're making your map, don't forget to consider the inside of the houses, because I guarantee you that your players are going to say, I want to knock this door down. Okay, roll a strength check. And or whatever, and then consider that. So make sure you know what the inside of the house looks like. It's been a derelict house for a while. Are the stairs still working? Is it something that they have to roll to make sure they don't go through the stair? And now they're vulnerable to the archer skeleton, who's now going to come around to the top of the stairs and start shooting at them. Things to consider. Then the visibility. So overcast conditions and layout of the town might reduce visibility, making it harder to spot ambushes. So maybe you increase the DC on a perception check to see if they're seeing any of these monsters moving around. That makes sense. Unless, of course, they have night vision or something like that, dark vision. All right, so encounter dynamics. Start with the zombies shambling towards the party as they enter the main street. This could be as much atmosphere as anything, and your players are going to be like, okay, there's some zombies coming. Let's just go kill them, or let's see if we can look, do I recognize anything with the zombie? And while they're investigating these, your skeletal archers are, they're going up the stairs into these houses, which is another perception check potentially. But after the first round of combat, where, the players are making short work of the zombies, I'm sure, but not all zombies are going to die the first hit, or the first round. So after the first round of combat, reveal the whites, who attempt to flank the party. So now they're coming up behind them. Skeletal archers should start firing from concealed positions, revealing themselves in the second or third round of combat. Love it. Encourage your players to use their environment to their advantage, such as taking cover or climbing to higher positions. The whites are the biggest threat due to their life drain ability, so players might want to focus on them first. Remind players about any AoE spells or abilities that they have that could be effective against a group of enemies like the zombies. So this is awesome. Frankly, this is a fantastic and very easy to picture encounter. It's nothing that's going to be the most memorable fight of their lives. So let's make a deadly encounter. I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. I would like to create a deadly encounter utilizing all of the same parameters for this fight in Mastic. So it's going to let me know that it's going to introduce some more challenging monsters, but also some additional monsters. Now, one thing that I have had bad luck with is just overwhelming my players with way too many monsters, mostly because combat in D&D tends to be a bit of a slog when there's a ton of monsters. So if it's something that you like to do, then awesome. If your players are great at it and they're quick, then awesome. But be aware of, this is suggesting I put 2 wraiths, 4 specters, 8 zombies, and 6 skeletons with short bows. This could be like a 3-hour fight. fight. So keep that in mind. If that's what you want to do with your time, then that's awesome. And this will be a memorable fight for sure. So, all right, let's see. It's intensely spooky with a palpable sense of dread. That is quite a bit more descriptive than the previous one that was just going to be like, it's a medium fight. All right, so you've got your 2 wraiths, which have incorporeal movement. So that's going to be causing quite a bit of a problem for them. And they're going to life drain as well. So you've got these wraiths just kind of moving through walls and maybe trapping people, especially if they go into a house to try to hide or get an advantage. All of a sudden there's this wraith behind them. So very cool. Use their incorporeal movement to ambush from within walls or floors, targeting isolated party members. Beautiful. Spectres, incorporeal movement, life drain, sunlight sensitivity, flank and use hit and run tactics, taking advantage of their movement to avoid direct confrontation. All right. I mean, specters are not overly complex creatures, but they're 4 of them and they're going to be a problem. Then you have a zombie horde, which is going to be 8 zombies. Same thing as we talked about before, except swarm the party, acting as a screen for the more dangerous enemies. But also just think about that. 8 zombies hitting 1 person is going to be a problem real fast. I mean, even at minimum damage, they're going to be doing what, like 60 damage, something like that. It's going to be a problem. Skeleton archers, 6 skeletons with short bows. Same idea as before, position in elevated or hidden locations, focusing on spellcasters or ranged attackers. Now, something to keep in mind too, just in the case of this scenario, think about why they would all be congregated in that one spot. Are they defending the city because of reasons? Is there some more environmental stuff that you can do? Is there something they're protecting that if you get to it, they all just stop being undead, stop being alive, stop being animated. Things to think about like that. Are they defending a necromancer? So environmental factors, confining spaces, blah, 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 debris and ruins. So it's adding a couple more things that we could have thought of in the first scenario. Now it's telling you to start with the zombie horde. After the first round, introduce the wraiths phasing through buildings or the ground to launch surprise attacks. That's going to start having your players really be not happy. Spectres should join in the second round, targeting weakened characters. I'm just smiling, thinking of torturing my players. I'm the worst. Skeleton archers open fire from concealed positions, aiming to control the battlefield. Okay, very easy. Now, this is one thing to consider, and it is a deadly, and we asked for a deadly. This encounter requires the party to prioritize threats, and characters, if the encounter proves too difficult, provide avenues for tactical retreat or environmental advantages the party can exploit. Now, in the case of something like this, you might want to consider, what is your goal with this encounter? Is it to provide a fun battle that your players are going to like really get into and be able to be tactical with? Or are you trying to have them run away? Because that might be something. You might want to block 2 of the 3 exits with your monsters, so it makes it very obvious where that third, this one in front of you is blocked with a horde of zombies. The skeletons are really closed in on this other thing to the left, where if you go in there, you're going to become a pincushion. But the one to the right seems totally like there's a couple of wraiths or something like that, and you want to just go that way, which might lead you to your next encounter. So something to think about with this. We don't need to do encounter design here, although that could be really fun for another episode. I mostly just wanted to talk about how to use ChatGPT by teaching them who your players are, and then asking it to make an encounter. I would love it if you would use this tool the way that I've just kind of gone over it for an encounter that you're designing, because it is one of those pain points where I can't tell you how many times I've thrown what I thought was going to be a difficult encounter to my players and they've blown through it, or I've had to kind of pull back a little bit because I made something way too difficult. It happens all the time. I would love it if you'd all tell me what your mileage is on using a tool like this. If you're not so much the encounter design, although totally use it for that, but more so the balancing. Like if you say I have 6 goblins and a group of 3 level 2s, what is going to happen in that fight? It will actually tell you. And something else to consider too, I didn't really show this, but you could say, could you give me the first 3 rounds of combat and what to do with each character? And it will totally do that. I think that would be a little slow to show you on screen here, but play with that yourself. Okay, thank you everybody for joining me here on Dungeons and Drams. I will see you next week with another ChatGPT tutorial, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.